Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Joining us, as always, on Tuesdays, the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, Andrew Malcolm, at AH Malcolm on the Twitters, and RedState.com, obviously, where he does all of his great VIP work. We're going to talk a little bit about his posts today and the top issues. Andrew, welcome back.
Thank you. It's Tuesday that you're hearing this.
That's right.
So it must be a good week.
It must be a good week. You know, I'd never noticed this before, but I was watching last week's podcast. Usually I'm listening to it just to make sure that the quality is good and all that kind of stuff. And I noticed that on the Chiron now, they're putting you Regent of Red State. Andrew Malcolm, Regent of Red State. So that's now an official. That's official nomenclature.
Oh, I guess it is. Well, I for a long time since you invented it, I've had Prince of Twitter. Prince of Twitter. I've had that on my bio.
Well, and that's.
I guess I got to get Regent of Red State. See,
you got to get the Regent of Red State. It's got to be you got to be able to do all of those things.
I have to figure out what kind of a neat hat regents have.
Well, don't get the one from Lord of the Rings, because the regent in that one was insane. He was out of his mind. It was Denethor, remember?
No,
I don't know. Well, maybe you never saw it, but
no. But I get a chuckle every graduation season watching all the pomp of the graduation ceremonies. It's wonderful to have such positive reinforcement for the young people, but the puffed up way that faculty gets, with their special march and all their colored robes and everything out of the Middle Ages, it's just, just wear a tie.
Well, yeah, just wear a tie. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of wearing a tie, I guess we should probably mention this since you brought it up. Have you seen John Fetterman's wardrobe in the Senate?
Oh, jeez. Isn't that amazing? I saw when he came back, and it looked like he was coming from a workout. He had a tattered sweatshirt and
shorts,
baggy basketball shorts, and tennis shoes with no socks. Going into the Capitol. I don't understand. While I'm old, so I don't understand how those sorts of things become acceptable.
I don't either. And I mean, look, this guy was always known for dressing down on the campaign trail, right? I mean, even before he had his stroke, he was known for that.
So what? Right. There's an element of decorum.
Right. As somebody else put it on Twitter, you guys tax us to death, and I think at a minimum, showing up in a suit and tie is appropriate. He can't go onto the Senate floor like that. They do have a dress code, so he's been casting his votes from the doorway.
Seriously?
Yeah, he just waits around till the vote comes up, and then he casts his vote from the doorway. And what I find most interesting about this is the media coverage of this. And you and I love to talk about the media, right?
Yeah.
So it's not new. The media coverage of this is that, John Fetterman's depression is improving since he returned to the Senate. And you can tell that by the fact that he won't get dressed up for work. It's like,
really?
I'm certainly not a psychologist, and I'm certainly not treating John Fetterman. And if his depression is getting better, I'm very happy for him and for his wife, because nobody wants anybody to be sick. But it's usually the opposite. Usually when you don't care about your personal appearance is when people start worrying that you're getting depressed, right? This guy was wearing suits at one point, and he's just kind of given up on it. And that doesn't sound to me like he's in a healthy frame of mind. Now, could be wrong, but the idea that the media isn't even bothering to ask the question, they're just regurgitating whatever it is that the spokesman's saying. Oh yeah, he's doing better. And you can tell that because he's not wearing, he's not dressing up for work. He's like,
he's wearing his jammies. It's in case he has to go back to bed.
It's kind of what it looks like. And it just that, the Dianne Feinstein thing, which I find endlessly fascinating. The media is actually going after Dianne Feinstein where they're not John Fetterman.
Right. Because they want to get somebody else in.
That's right.
Another Dem. Yeah.
They want Feinstein out of there so that Gavin Newsom can replace Feinstein. The Feinstein's refusing to leave, which is, she's already said she's not running again, so she's just going to be in there until
write it out. It's what they do. They don't talk about media. It doesn't talk about it either. But the longer you're in the Senate, the bigger the pension. So when Joe Biden was running for vice president, he didn't leave the Senate. When Joe Biden got elected vice president, he didn't leave the Senate. And it wasn't until the early part of January in 2009 that he finally resigned. But that got him an extra, I don't know what, but an extra amount of pension.
Well, now he's president. Of course, he's going to be double dipping off of that too. Vice president, he had a pension. He'll get the pension for president, presumably not for long. I mean, when he's done, he's already 80 years old. Feinstein's what, 88, 89?
No, 89. Yeah.
89. Yeah. So
and again, she looks 94. I mean, she just looks awful.
She does. She looks awful. Of course, she's coming off of being sick with the shingles and encephalitis, which we just found out this past week, right? Nobody mentioned that she had encephalitis until just the last few days. But apparently, that was while the shingles was acute, because that is a common complication for people her age who have shingles.
Shingles is awful.
Yeah.
It is. My mother had shingles, and it is awful. I mean, yeah. So if you had chicken pox, get the shingle shot. Ed,
I did.
Yeah, I witnessed my mother with the shingles, so I got 2 shingle shots. I'm just doubling down.
Yeah. Well,
they were like $half size blisters, and they were like glass going into your skin. It was and it went on for weeks. This is not something like chicken pox. I remember when I had chicken pox, which is what makes you eligible for shingles. I was supposed to be in a dark room at my grandma's house for several days. Whoopie-doo. So,
well, I think that was based on a misunderstanding that it was like scarlet fever, which it could affect your eyesight. Chickenpox actually doesn't do that, but I think that there was, during that period of time, there was some concern that it was like scarlet fever and it would affect your eyesight if you were in bright light. But and
they didn't have TV either. So
no, yeah.
And literally when I first we used to spend part of the year up there. That was in Canada. And so everyone in my family was Canadian except for me. My dad had become an American. She had one of those old phones, where you pick it up and put it to your ear. And
oh yeah,
I don't remember if you cranked it, but you picked it up, and the house is gone now. But it's good memories. There's one of the getting old is not always great, but of course it's better than the alternative. But it does give you a perspective, and you remember things that sound like Mars to people today.
True. And and you can go out and shake your fist at the clouds and nobody's terribly surprised at it.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my damn lawn. Turn down that radio. What's the matter with you kids? I've been practicing up. Now that I'm 60, I feel I am ready to deploy all of these things. Yeah. So I just find it interesting that every single thing that Dianne Feinstein does, even though she's now casting votes, she's actually in the Senate. She's being wheeled around. And the media is constantly talking about all of her infirmities, while at the same time they're selling John Fetterman as, oh yeah, no, he's totally fine.
Yeah, I know.
Can't put his heads together. Can't put his
heads
together.
And remember, they were all over Mark Kirk, who had a stroke, and he was wheeled around because they wanted to get rid of. Imagine that, a Republican from Illinois.
Yeah, well,
Chuck Percy and Mark Kirky. Yeah.
And they didn't do that with what's his name? senator from New Mexico, but he's a relatively young guy. I think he was in his 40s when he had a stroke, and everybody expected him to recover, right? I mean, and he did. He recovered. But this is different. I mean, she's infirm, and we get that. But so's John Fetterman, and he should be covered the same way that Dianne Feinstein.
Exactly. Yeah. But
Joe Biden doesn't matter too. But did you see his latest thing on the budget?
No, why?
Okay, I'm not going to play it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the transcript from Grabian on this because. And then you can just imagine it in Joe Biden's voice because it sounds very much like Joe Biden's voice when I heard it. Ready?
I'm ready to go.
At the end of this, I expect you to be able to diagram the sentences for me because I can't figure it out, and I used to do that for a living. All right. And there's a lot of other, for example, the idea that in terms of taxes that they refuse to, for example, I was able to balance the budget and pass everything from the global warming bill. Anyway, I was able to cut by 1.7 billion in the first 2 years, the deficit that we were accumulating. And because I was able to say to that, the 55 corporations in America that made $400 billion or 40 billion, 400 billion, that they paid zero in tax, zero. Now imagine hearing it like, and there's a lot of other, for example, and you kind of get the idea of what this was like, right? And I'd play it for you.
And it just, no, never mind. But it just goes on. And people go, oh, well, that's Joe. Isn't this terrible? But nobody does anything. I mean, This is a guy at the summit. This is representing the United States.
Right.
God forbid there's a second term, but he is already seen as weak across, of course he is, across the world.
Yeah.
Putin didn't start organizing the Ukraine invasion until Biden's predecessor was gone. He did the Crimea annexation when Obama and Biden were in office. And now we're hearing more about China and Taiwan since Biden's predecessor is gone. God forbid what else could come from the world seeing, oh, this guy's not with it. We could do a lot of fun things.
Yep. Well, speaking of disparate coverage, I got to bring this up. I forgot to mention this to you before we got started, and Andrew's going to storm off the set here and say, Morrissey throws me curveballs, damn it. I'm just kidding around. But I did mean to mention this to you, and I forgot. So, I turned 60, so I'm starting to forget stuff. Anyway.
Yeah.
I have a long memory in other ways, and this story shows it, right? So Politico on Friday decided that they were going to profile Casey DeSantis. Right? DeSantis.
Yeah.
Have you seen this thing?
No, go ahead.
All right.
Oh, yeah, with the Roger Stone as the source.
Yeah, Roger Stone, the guy who Trump pardoned, commuted his sentence and then pardoned. They've got him as a source for what for Casey DeSantis and the DeSantis marriage. It says, have you ever noticed Roger Stone, the notorious political mischief maker, who is both a DeSantis antagonist and a many decades-long Trump loyalist, remarked in a Telegram post last fall how much Ron DeSantis's wife is Casey is like Lady Macbeth, an agent, in other words, of her husband's undoing. Now, why did they even bother to pull a quote from Roger Stone and from a Telegram post several months ago in their own profile of Casey DeSantis?
Yeah.
Lady Macbeth. She's the power behind the throne.
Well, I hate to say this. Well, I don't hate to say it because it pisses me off, but Politico is now owned by the Axel Springer media empire in Germany. And they're making very aggressive moves in the United States to have influence here. Germany is not a fan of the United States, and so we will see all kinds of and they've done it to Ron DeSantis too. If you look at the headlines, same
Right.
on the Hill, and he's an outsider. He's not part of the Washington Guga that the fraternity. And God bless Trump for not going to the White House Correspondents' dinners.
Right.
It's so pathetic, and we're just fitted day after day after day. But I think the country is learning to dismiss much of it.
Well, I think they're ignoring a lot of this.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And it's eroding the credibility of outfits like Politico. And a couple more things about this Politico thing, because I wrote up a piece about this because I was really annoyed by this. I want to read you how they framed a quote. Okay. And you'll I think you'll catch on to what the issue is right here. Okay. Casey DeSantis, the wife of Ron DeSantis, just a few minutes before at a table in the crowd had looked oddly disengaged. Listening to him give a speech this past Saturday evening in a drab hotel conference room here, sitting somewhat stiffly, clapping intermittently, her face flat and her shoulders almost slumped. Now, though, having been prompted to join him on stage, she turned in expression and tone suddenly and noticeably brighter. That's a good question, she cooed. Cooed.
Yeah, cooed.
Yeah, because Republican women coo.
What's the byline?
Michael Kruse, who's a senior staff writer at Politico and Politico magazine. This is actually Politico magazine that this appeared in. Same thing. But I mean, this whole thing is, oh, well, she's just there for the power. She's not really interested in the politics, blah, 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 blah.
Well, she's a TV veteran, so you turn it on when the camera's on. I mean,
he turns it on when they go on stage,
Yeah, exactly.
Talking to other people backstage, they're thinking about other things. They're checking their email. Then when their name gets called,
they're on.
You're straighten up and you're on. I mean, I don't know why this is somehow odd to Michael Kruse. Maybe he's just got out of college. I don't think that's the case. I think Kruse has been around for a while. But I'm pretty sure that they have never used the word cooed to describe what Jill. A woman says on stage. Yeah, and they certainly didn't do it with Jill. And that was actually part of my post because, Andrew, this might surprise you, but 3 weeks earlier, they had written a profile of Dr. Jill Biden, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Dr. Jill Biden. Don't be a misogynist. Dr. Jill Biden, right?
Right.
And to say that the tone of these two pieces differs is to say, that Jeffrey Epstein kind of had a bad day in court once. They attempted to paint Jill Biden as Joe's gut check in deciding to run for a certain term. This is a different writer, of course. Eugene Daniels wrote the Jill Biden one. There's no mention of Lady Macbeth, no power behind the throne. There's no word. They never use the word coup in any form. Or Jill Biden doesn't coup, apparently. And her gentle this is a poll quote here. Her gentle encouragement of her husband's reelection run comes as she's relishing her role, hanging out the Super Bowl and the women's Final Four, and actively posting on social media. Unlike the cliche applied to wives of major political figures that they're the secret weapon behind their husband's success, there's nothing that secret about the role she is playing. So she's relishing her role, involved in all the high-level discussions, while Casey DeSantis is uncommonly involved, which is from Michael Kruse's piece, the power behind the throne, and people around the DeSantises fear Casey's retribution. Yeah. Same magazine, same publication. And so I wrote standards. If Politico didn't have two of them, they wouldn't have any.
That's why I'm going to go and retweet that post. We got to get that out more.
Oh my gosh, it's so bad.
My column on Sunday was about DeSantis coming in and Trump and a bunch on Biden, and I found a picture that to me is just priceless, which I had not seen anywhere before. Waiting to go on stage, there's Joe Biden Jill Biden and Joe Biden in a hallway, and he is doing what he does to females. He's got her by the shoulders. He's got his nose in by her ear. And I don't know if he's sniffing. It sure looked like it. And she has the look on her face. I facetiously called it an enduring love. But she has a look on her face of, I'm trying to be so patient. I'm trying to be so patient.
Hang on. Yeah. You know, I'm gonna share this. Hang on for just a second. I can share this. I can share this over here.
Isn't it? Yeah.
There you go, folks. That's the
look at that. Look at that face on her. Oh,
she's not happy. She is not happy. That's all I can say. Not happy.
And I remember last month when Joe got to rambling on a speech and said that she leaves him little sticky notes, and one recent one on his bathroom mirror was, "Please, no, stop trying to make me love you."
Yeah. Okay.
Cringe. And but to have it happen, but then to share it with the world. And to not have the filter, to know that the world goes, ooh.
Yeah, that's not good.
Stop trying to make me love you. Jeez.
Did you see them in Japan? Because he was in Japan. Last week.
Yeah.
Did you see this where he's being greeted in Hiroshima by, I believe it's the prime minister and his wife, Fumio Kishida.
Right.
Yes, I'm going to try to play. Did you see this?
Well, I saw some of it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let me see if I can share this, because this actually I would like to share. So let me do this and share the sound so that you can hear it. I'm going to skip forward here because there's a pretty long period of waiting. So they show up. I'm not sure if you can see this. So they're shaking hands, and he does this weird sort of martial arts pose with the prime minister's wife. First off, I didn't figure out what that was about. And then they're supposed to stand for a picture, and
just guess.
Polarity and speed.
We'll figure it out. Like this.
So in case you didn't hear it, what the first lady is saying is he'll figure it out. The prime minister is trying to do boy, girl, right?
Right.
Pretty. And that's also normally the way that you would have. Normally, the host couple would be on either side and the guest couple would be on the inside.
Right.
That's not unusual. You've seen it probably thousands of times, right?
Right.
Biden got lost in a 4-person setup for a picture with, I mean,
yeah. How does that happen? I don't. Well, I know how it happens. I think most people, and I wrote about this in the column. Most people who have watched a loved one decay away, have seen the look in Joe's eyes. In their loved one, and that is that there's the person is no longer in there.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he's still there because, I mean, I still pick out the authentic Joe Biden. That's not a compliment, by the way, but he is clearly, there's a competency issue here. And the media is not talking about that, just like they're not talking about it with Fetterman, but they're throwing Dianne Feinstein under the bus over it. And it's because they have a particular agenda. All right. I want to talk about Tim Scott getting in the race.
Yeah. That's interesting.
What did you think of his speech? I don't know how much of it you got a chance to watch.
Well, I had the text, and it to me it was interesting and kind of refreshing in the sense that it was optimistic, You know, I mean,
Yes.
so many of these people get into the race and everything's wrong, and I'm here to fix it. And he's here to say, you know, he's created a wonderful life thanks to his mother and America. And the implication is that he can do it for others. I don't know that he has much of a chance, but he certainly has the right to run, and he certainly has a lot of money. He's got 22 million in the bank right now.
Which is good sum. It's still far below Trump and DeSantis, but it's still a good sum.
Except here's the thing. Yes, it is below, but DeSantis's money is tied up in lots of different committees, which all have different restrictions.
Right. That's right.
Tim Scott's 22 million is Tim Scott's 22 million to do with as he wishes. And that's pretty powerful. They've already bought, I believe, a major ad campaign. You know, I wish him luck. I think he's a good man, and I point out that he became a senator because a good woman who was governor, Nikki Haley, nominated him. So,
yeah,
it's a couple of people splitting up the South Carolina vote, which in the primary for the Republican primary is usually the one that's decisive. So once again, splitting up the vote, which is what Trump is hoping for. You know, I wrote about this in the column too. He lost Iowa in 2016, but he won New Hampshire with, like, I think 35% of the vote. But the other candidates got in the 60s combined. And, you know, that's good for Trump because they split up an overwhelming amount, which if it was for one other or two other candidates would have likely beat him. And the same thing happened in South Carolina, where Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz were the only major competitors. And of course, they were out immediately afterwards. But together, they got more than Trump did, once again. So he's counting on a plurality being sufficient. And if there are a lot of candidates, and you know, the sound is that, of course, DeSantis is getting in this week, and then I saw that Chris Christie is close to coming in, and then there's Mike Pence and somebody else.
Well, Larry Elder is talking about getting in the race too. Is a friend of mine.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and so there's 5 officially now, plus, or I guess it's 6 now with Scott, and then DeSantis makes 7. I don't think they're going to get up to the numbers of 2016 when there were 17.
I hope not. I mean, just because it's unwieldy, you know. And the other thing is, I still think this is going to come down to a 2-person race. It's going to come down to Trump and whoever isn't Trump. And I think DeSantis is very clearly, by far, the leader in that lane. I am very excited about Tim Scott, though. And today's rally shows why. I did watch a good chunk of that, by the way. Didn't watch it live. I watched it on video while I was writing my post about this. And I think we forget just how good he is on stage, right? He's very good at connecting with audiences. Had this really wonderful moment with his mother. He calls his mother up to the stage, and I cannot remember what the connection is to this other woman. It's another obviously very close friend or some sort of relation to him, and he gives them each a bouquet of flowers. He talks about how much his mother believes in its character that counts, and raising him the way that she did and all that, and how much he appreciates that. It was really nice. And he's kind of self-deprecating all the way through it, saying, well, now I got, you know, when it was over, he says, well, now I got to start the speech over again. And he was talking to the person with the, you know, with the teleprompter. Well, you got to start over again from the beginning. And people are laughing in the audience, and, you know, he was having a good time.
Yeah. He's very and he's comfortable. He's very comfortable. Yes.
Very comfortable. Talks about faith-based themes, I think certainly better than Trump, probably better than DeSantis, maybe even more with more emotional resonance than Mike Pence does. Mike Pence certainly knows how to talk about, faith-based values and that sort of thing. He's very good at it, but Mike Pence is more reserved. He's a little less engaging in that sense. He's more intellectual. Whereas Tim Scott's going to make it fun, and he's going to make it optimistic. It's very much a Reagan-y sort of thing today. It's the back to a morning in America sort of approach. The Democrats, and mostly aimed at Democrats. I got to say, though, one of the big messages out of this, and it's consistent with what Scott's has said in the past, is that he wants to run against the culture of grievance and the culture of victimhood. Now, I was talking with Larry O'Connor. I told Larry, I said, yeah, that's going to play well in a general election, right? I mean, that's obviously going to be one of the things that you're going to want to attack Biden over. And he's attacking Biden explicitly in this. But I said, come on. The grievances and victimhood are playing a role in the primary, too. And you've got to think that that was not a coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's very smart. And you talk about connecting with audiences. He connects with donors. He's a wonderful fundraiser.
Yes.
Joe Biden has a reputation for being terrible, fundraiser. So somebody else has got to do that for him. And, the DNC and all that. And they're trying to protect him by not having any primary debates. And, I have a suspicion. You and I talked about this, part of it before. One, I have no inside knowledge, but I simply cannot believe that Joe Biden will end up as the nominee of the Democrat Party. He may very well, but I can't believe he's so thoroughly damaged. Every time he comes out, he does something else to add to it. And there's, 62%, I think, in the most recent polls that he's just not up to being mentally president. So I think Robert Kennedy, I don't think Robert Kennedy's going to get, Jr. isn't going to get the nomination, but they see him coming. That's why there's no debates. I think he's 62. He's going to make trouble. He's one of these anti-vaccine guys.
Yeah, he's a nut. I mean, let's just face it. Robert F. Kennedy.
I know, but as a what's the word? Palatable alternative in a primary when it doesn't seem to matter to a lot of people. I think he's going to have a better showing than anyone. Certainly a better showing than Marianne Williamson, but a better showing than many expect. And I also think Tim Scott is going to do better than people expect.
I think you're right about that, because I think people are going to be attracted to his optimism and his his passion. DeSantis is good on the stump too, but DeSantis is more of a guy who is sort of a take charge kind of guy. I don't know that you'd say that DeSantis is particularly inspiring on the stump, but he's very effective and he is efficient, I would say, on the stump.
He's built up a hell of a record.
Oh yeah. And that's what he's running on. And that's usually what Republicans respond to anyway, is executive records. We'll see if that still holds in the present, conservative populism. But going back to the Democrats, Joe Biden's campaign screwed up by not getting him on the ballot in time in New Hampshire. I don't know if you've been following that. They're trying to figure out a backdoor way to get him on the ballot, because if he's not on the ballot, people aren't going to be able to vote for him. They're going to hold a primary and he's going to lose it.
I know, but he's trying to crap on New Hampshire because they didn't go for him in 20.
Yeah. But my feeling on RFK is that functionally speaking, the best that you can think of RFK Jr., who's an authoritarian nutcase. I just want to get that in there one more time. He's an authoritarian nutcase. Can I say that again? Authoritarian nutcase. The best that you can, I don't want to say the best, but I think the most likely outcome of his campaign won't be that he's going to seriously challenge Joe Biden for the nomination, but I think of him more in terms of a Eugene McCarthy kind
Yeah.
of potential, right? You know, Eugene McCarthy never really presented a serious threat to Lyndon Johnson. If Lyndon Johnson had decided to stick out the 1968 campaign, Eugene McCarthy wouldn't have beaten him to the nomination. But Eugene McCarthy embarrassed him. I believe it was also in New Hampshire by coming in a very close second, if I recall correctly. And that was what led LBJ to say, you know what?
Who needs
Really,
this?
yeah, I clearly am not going to have the traction to win a reelection campaign, and decided to take a pass after Eugene McCarthy. And that was when, you know, the original RFK got involved, or shortly after that. It wasn't actually immediate.
Right.
And this was, you know, a number of people got into the race at that time, Bobby Kennedy being one of the later entrants, but Bobby Kennedy ended up winning a bunch of these later primaries. It was on the cusp of wrapping up the nomination when he was assassinated in Los Angeles. And then, of course, the 1968 convention happened, which was a disaster for Democrats. But, you know,
but Humphrey came close to beating Nixon.
Yeah, Humphrey ends up with the nomination, and it was a close election in 1968. But that to me is not that we're talking about assassinations, but that to me is about as close as RFK Jr. is going to get to this. He'll be Gene McCarthy if he can embarrass Biden in an early primary simply by just showing up.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to have debates. Don't forget the DNC, just like the RNC did last cycle. The DNC is saying we're not doing debates. We've got a nominee. It's Joe Biden. But if he gets on the ballot and embarrasses Biden in that primary, then I think that signals that Biden's too weak to be reelected, and then everybody starts looking at getting in. Gavin Newsom might jump in. A couple other governors might jump in. The guy in Maryland might jump in. He's a first termer, but you know, he might decide to jump in. I can't remember his name right now.
Wes Moore.
Wes Moore, thank you. But then I think you start seeing open season, and that primary becomes very, 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 very interesting, very, 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 very fast.
You know, I got back in those early years, the late 60s and early 70s, I got to spend some time with Hubert Humphrey covering his campaign. And you talk about optimism. There was the most he may have been, maybe Scott will give him a run for it, but he may have been the most cheerful, optimistic candidate. That
the happy warrior. He was the happy warrior. He was the original happy warrior.
Just by instinct, he was basically optimistic. And you remember, I happened to see over the weekend a tape of Ronald Reagan telling one of his jokes about they had this couple that had one son who was a terrible pessimist and one son who was a terrible optimist. And so they went to a therapist. Therapist says, "I know what to do." So they took the pessimist son into a room, and they gave him all the greatest toys in the world. And then they took the other son, the optimist, and they put him in a room with a couple tons of horse manure. And they went to the kid in the pessimist kid, and he said, "Oh, these are wonderful toys, but someone's going to come and take them away." And they went to the optimist kid, and he's digging into the manure, and he said, "There must be a pony in here somewhere."
I love that joke. With all this shit, there's gotta be a pony in here someplace. I know people like that too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna play the lotto.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right? Yeah. All right. So I guess we've gotten to the jokes part of our
oh, really? Already?
Of our podcast. Yeah, because it's getting we've been on this for a while. So all right, I got a couple of them for you, and I know you've got a couple for me.
Hit me.
All right. I've written a musical called Goldfish. It's very similar to Cats, although memory is a lot shorter.
Mm-hmm. I saw one meme that said, if cats could text you, they wouldn't.
All right, I'll let you go next because
Okay, well, we got Jay Leno says these are old now. Obama says the IRS targeting conservative groups is outrageous, and he vows to put his top Benghazi investigators on the case. And then Jay Leno on that line, he says, there's so many scandals now for Barack Obama, the IRS, Fast and Furious. You know, it's really bad when Obama says, hey, let's talk about Benghazi.
yeah, that's a tell.
Yeah, that's a tell. That's a tell. Boy, when you go down, we've done this, but when you go down the list of scandals that he says he never had any, but Fast and Furious and Solyndra,
and now this
$535 million taxpayer money bailed out Solyndra, whose owner, overwhelmingly majority owner, was an Obama bundler.
Right. And let's not forget the Durham report, which showed that Obama knew that the whole Russia collusion thing was a Hillary Clinton dirty trick, and pretended that it was on the level for years. Pretended it was on the level. Still is pretending that it's on the level. Yeah. All right, I got one for you.
Okay.
Couldn't sleep last night, so I decided to read the dictionary. By 3 a.m., I was past caring. Just past caring. All right, one more. I got one more for you.
Okay.
All right. Man goes to his pastor and says, I really need you to pray for my hearing. So the pastor says, all right, lays hands on both sides of the man's head and says, prays for the hearing. And he says, when he's done, he says, so now how's your hearing? Man says, I don't know. It isn't until next Tuesday.
I like that. I like those twists.
I love a good twist. I love a good twist.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, I think we're just about wrapped up for this week. And Andrew Malcolm, the Prince of Twitter, the official regent of RedState.com.
That's right. That's right. Look at the Chiron.
Just look at the Chiron. It says regent of RedState.com. He'll have new VIP stuff next week when we get together again. Andrew, and by the way, you can find him on Twitter at @AHMalcolm because he is the Prince of Twitter, as well as regent of RedState.com. Andrew, thanks so much. Can't wait to talk next week.
Okay, buddy. Take care. Thanks, everybody.